Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I am your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by my two co-hosts, Katie Harris, Derek Preece, founding and managing partners here at Spot On Solutions. Katie and Derek, thanks for coming on. We've got a very special guest, two special guests this week. I would hate to single one of them out. It seems like that would not end well. But two very special guests this week. Chris Nordyke and Brandon Reece from Floodlight Consulting Group. Chris, Brandon, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Excited to be here, man. Thanks, you
guys.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Sorry, Katie, did you notice that we've elevated to co-hosts?
Oh, geez.
That was new. I know.
I'm like, whoa,
Thanks,
that's
Stop
awesome.
it. Stop it right now.
You're getting all up.
You both have been co-hosts for a while. I may have not said that correctly, but hey, you're co-hosts. All right.
Awesome.
This is going to be an awesome podcast. Chris, Brandon, you already kind of did a prequel, we'll call it, during the core event with Derek to talk a little bit about sales and all things commercial sales and how, Spot On Solutions and Floodlight are going to kind of partner up on these really cool things that we're going to be doing here in the future. But first and foremost, for those of us maybe that aren't as familiar with who you guys are and what you guys do at Floodlight Consulting Group, I'm going to kick it to both of you. You can arm wrestle, although you're not next to each other. You can arm wrestle over who's going to maybe kind of lead with this, but give us some background on who you guys are, what Floodlight Consulting Group is, and I'm sure a lot of our audience already knows who you are, so maybe just kind of refresh them a little bit on what you guys do over there.
Sure. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're a full service consulting group. So Brandon and I are consultants and work with clients directly, and we also have a team of consultants that we've been building. And Brandon and I we came into the consulting practice having worked with consultants in our industry before, as we were operating in the field, building teams, building restoration companies. And we learned great things. Like, we learned a lot of stuff from the consultants and coaches that we worked with. But there was a piece of, what we found is when somebody hires a consultant like we did, you're already in the mire of a growing business and a growing operation. And, oftentimes as a consultant, you're teaching people stuff, you're giving them new processes to deploy. And it's like, handing, somebody who's drowning a baby, right, to hold on to in the midst of everything else they're already doing just to kind of survive in their business. And we felt that to a degree when we were the customer, and we thought, businesses can really use some extra hands and feet in helping actually implement the changes that we as consultants are suggesting. And so I think what's unique about Floodlight and what we really built the business around is coming alongside our owners and senior leaders in the companies we work with to not only point out the right direction, the best practices, how to get, from point A to point B where they want to go, but also getting in the trenches and being a battle buddy for them as well. So that's when we say we're a full service consultant, we do teaching, we do equipping, then we also do the in between, in terms of model those new behaviors, processes, procedures, and also coming alongside them, training and equipping their down those things in the midst of them still operating their business, right? So that's kind of the essence of Floodlight. Another thing that I think marks our business and the way that we're trying to do consulting is we're really trying to do it in such a way that we're creating evergreen relationships with people, with our clients, in that as a restoration company grows, the problems and the opportunities that they encounter, they change, so we start with companies, maybe say at $3 million. Well, when they get to 5 or 6, they have a new set of challenges and opportunities that they need the same kind of partnership and help. And so we've had some customers that we've been working with now for 2 or more years, and we continue to come alongside them and partner with them. So that's kind of the basic gist of what we're doing there. And then we do live workshops, and as folks that were at Core Collective here this past week, we do keynotes and things of that sort as well.
I love it. I love the metaphor of a battle buddy, right? And I think there's probably more to that than just that phrase. And so, I know there's some background here in the military and how I don't, and feel free to, you can disregard this question or push by it, but how do you feel like some of that background in, working in the military has helped you in your consulting, or how do you feel like, are there some skills there that you learned that you feel like has helped you maybe kind of elevate some businesses when it comes to the restoration industry?
Yeah, I'm going to let Brandon handle that because I grew up as a choir boy. I didn't have any of the military background, so
Brandon, yeah, I love
talk about that.
The idea of the battle buddy or and whatever else, you feel like is applicable there. But yeah, I love that analogy.
Yeah, I think the reality of it is, if you listen to the show, the podcast, or if you've worked with our team, it's pretty clear that there's a heavy influence from my past experience with the military. And mainly because the military is it's a world-class organization in terms of helping reshape someone's journey, right? Like taking somebody in whatever form they got them and intentionally and proactively helping them navigate into a different mindset, different posture, different attitude, and a different way of thinking and or interacting within these teams. And so it would be a sad thing to ignore, right? The experience that I had. Now, it's not the end all, it's not the be all, but it certainly has influenced me in a lot of different ways. I think the other thing that's very interesting, and I think our industry sees this a lot, is EMS first responders in general, whether it be police, paramedics, firefighters, small teams, combat veterans, all those, they kind of get our industry too. Like the mentality of you're in something bigger than you are, that we're often interacting with people in very dire circumstances, or certainly high anxiety, high stress circumstances. Like in general, the language, the theories really translate well into our industry. And so we certainly have drafted a lot of those things and brought them into our practice. I think some of the language that we use, like specifically around battle buddy and stuff like that, is it's really oriented around relationship. Chris and I are pretty keyed in on, like, we feel like good leadership, elite performing organizations, a lot of what's happening is actually built and based on the kind of relationships that are being built inside the organization between frontline teams and peers and leadership, leadership roles. And so, like, that whole battle buddy, it's actually a term and something that we encourage throughout the ranks. So we're teaching leadership teams to learn how to identify and create battle buddies out of their peers, right? Their fellow department heads or fellow GM, whatever. But then we're also, like, in an onboarding scenario, when you have a brand new person coming into your organization, how much better is that relationship if right out of the gate they have a friend, not a boss, just a peer that's used to the same crap they are, and can ask them honest questions about, like, hey, how's your first day been with your boss? How's communication, blah, blah, blah. But I think that battle buddy is really synonymous with someone to journey with you to help create some confidence and some stickiness in the relationships that you're potentially building within the organization. So that was a real preachy way, I think, to get to that answer.
We call them mentors in our office. You guys are so much cooler. Like,
much cooler. Katie, can we start calling them battle buddies? Can we steal this?
So much cooler.
Yeah, come on,
buddies. And this is your mentor. So we're gonna up our game a little bit there, Hayden.
I love it.
Steal away, guys. Steal away.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think
steal away, right? Like,
yeah. Although I don't know if Brandon is a guy I want to steal from, just based on what he just talked about with experience in the military. I feel like he will drive down here and beat me up if we steal something from him. So we're going to be careful with what we do, Katie.
Bro, I'm all love now, man.
Okay. All right.
Chris,
I'm still sidetracked on the choir boy comment that Chris mentioned. Sorry. I
was making a joke.
I'm with you, Chris. I 100% grew up that way. And so this is not, I'm going to speak to this a little bit, and my connection with it is not anywhere near as close as Brandon's, obviously, but I have a lot of clients that are either veterans themselves or employ veterans, and they seem to have a lot of those values that you talk about. And so even on just a base level, I think there's a lot of, good things that you can provide to restoration owners, because more often than not, they're going to have somebody in their organization that has military experience. be, National Guard or reserves or whatever it is, but they have some kind of experience with that. And so you guys can relate to them, Brandon, you can relate to them on a very like close level because you understand a lot of the challenges and struggles that they've dealt with, and a lot of the successes that they've had, and that they've been able to grow themselves personally, but maybe help grow the people around them. And the military does that in a very, very unique way. I have some great, really close friends that are in the military, and it's been awesome to see how it's changed their life for the better. And I think a lot of those values that you're talking about in your consulting and what you guys have tried to do with, something as simple as just a battle buddy is a great way to kind of talk to people about growing their business. Is like, hey, everybody needs a battle buddy, whether you're on the battlefield or just trying to, help your business grow in those types of ways. So I love it. It's something that relates to me and my family. And I think will relate to what we're going to do going forward, talking about SOS and Floodlight. So it sounded like, to use that analogy a little bit more, SOS and Floodlight, we needed some battle buddies when it comes to this elevating of people and businesses, right? Yeah. Our SOS, that has been our vision for quite a while now. Katie, Derek and Katie, when did we first coin that vision statement? That was a few years ago, right? 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, it was about in 2016
Okay.
2016, 17, that we did a lot of work around our vision and our purpose and our values, right? And really landed on this idea of like, we elevate people and businesses. And so it's awesome when you walk around our office, people will say, hey, what do you guys do? And the first answer that comes out of our team's mouth is, oh yeah, well, we elevate people and businesses. Well, we do that right now, mostly through digital marketing, right? That's how we do it. But if digital marketing went away tomorrow, which it's not going to do, but if it went away tomorrow, we would still be elevating people and businesses. Whatever we do, we're so driven with that purpose in mind, beginning with ourselves and our own team and our clients and the industry really as a whole. We just have come to love the restoration industry so much. And that idea of elevating it is core to everything we really try to do.
It's kind of interesting if I could just piggyback on that for a second.
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the things I really get excited about is when I hear other leaders kind of express the internal thing, right, that's driving what they're doing as an organization. It's so interesting. Chris and I, for the longest time, like kind of since we've been doing this, essentially, we've made jokes or references to, you remember that old school toy called like Light Bright? Mm-hmm. Right? Where it's like that black, background, you plug the deal in and that little peg that you've put in lights up whatever color. And it's interesting because I feel like what you've said and how we run and operate internally as a team is like, we voiced it as we like considering ourselves and our consultants part of that Light Bright, right? Where every time we go into an organization, we help plug in one of those pegs and get that thing lit up, all that space around them, whether it be in their team, in the organization, in their community, gets brighter, right? It illuminates opportunity, illuminates growth, all those things. And I just think it's interesting the language that you're using and how really we are partnered pretty well in terms of just mission and kind of focus internally as well. So anyways, I just kind of always like that visual. For me, it's a good reminder of what the heck am I doing and why am I doing it, Just
add on top of what you were saying, Brandon. Again, I'm a big metaphor apparently guy. The metaphor, the visual of the Light Bright. A quote that I always think of, and I don't know who it's credited to, so I apologize if somebody listens to this and they're like, this is this person that said it. But a quote that I always think about when it comes to like problem solving and trying to help people, again, mostly what I do is with the digital marketing side, but don't curse the darkness, light a candle. And that's kind of what been my like motto when it comes to this stuff is like when a client comes to me with a problem, or maybe we have a problem here internally at SOS, there's, a system we're trying to implement, we're struggling with or whatever it is. Like we can either curse the problem and be frustrated and get mad and not do anything about it and just be mad. Or we can light a candle, or we can, plug in that Light Bright, right? And we can start shedding some light and solving and providing solutions. And that in turn is going to make hopefully that individual or that system better, but then maybe also start touching people around them and making them better and making other systems better. And the visual of light when it comes to stuff like helping people and elevate and sharing our vision, the idea of light and how it spreads and how it works. Yeah, it just totally makes sense. And I love that metaphor there.
This is what I was going to say. If you rewind time a few months ago when we first met, we got told, you guys should meet. I think you'd like each other. And we jumped on a call, and immediately, like, we're talking the same language, right? The things that were so important to you guys, I'm like, that's what we believe too, right? And because we've for this long time had such a desire to really elevate the industry, and we know there's been this ask for more online trainings, right? It makes it easier to get people on there. It's more affordable. It fits different scenarios. We built out our SOS Navigator. And Chris and Brandon, when you started telling us about, your master course, and we looked at it, I'm like, man, this is awesome. And so I think when you share a joint passion of really just elevating an industry, right, and you see something that works, it made a ton of sense for us to kind of team up together and bring this together. So that's how it all started, honestly, is we just got talking about who we were and what we believed. And pretty soon we were like, man, this makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's been one of the most rewarding things about Chris and I's journey on the consulting side, honestly, is just the relationships that we've built with other service providers to our contractors. Like your guys' team, of course, we have a really close partnership with Eric and Larry, the Super Tech boys. That's where our intro had. But in general, like, those relationships have been really important to us. They've really helped move the needle for us as an organization. They've helped us really bounce off ideas and make sure we stay true to that mission and that focus. And it's been awesome. I mean, it's been really impactful for us.
Derek, I want to kick things to you. We've talked obviously a little bit about kind of the shared vision, Floodlight, Spot On Solutions. Katie teed it up a little bit to mention Navigator. You talked with Chris and Brandon at the core event about what this kind of what Navigator was, and maybe kind of the genesis of it. You want to talk a little bit about maybe a little bit more specifically what Katie was talking about. What is SOS Navigator? Why did we create this? And how is it going to work closely maybe with Chris and Brandon over at Floodlight?
Oh yeah, awesome. And you're right, Katie teed it up, but we've been working with restoration companies for, going on 12 years now, and we've always, we're kind of we're the ones who get in the mire with people, and we get their stuff going for them. But a lot of times, depending on the client that we're working with, like Katie said, our mission, our vision is to help people elevate people and businesses, but sometimes there's just some barriers between what we can physically do and what those people can potentially afford to invest. Or people have different ideas of, well, I want to do it myself. I want to have an understanding of what this is all about, so that either I can do it or I can speak the language when I have somebody else doing these marketing tasks for us. So as we've evolved and as we've continued to grow Spot On Solutions, and like Katie said, the desire for on-demand online learning is just getting bigger and bigger. Being able to learn from your desk instead of having to travel and take courses across the country, it's just a big thing. And so we saw a really big need of being able to service clients that really weren't in a position to use our full range of services. So that's why we built Navigator, to help people navigate the ins and outs of growing a business, whether it's, in our case, marketing, if it's, and as far as Chris and Brandon's case, the sales side of things, whether it's management, whatever it is. I mean, we have big visions for Navigator, but, we want to give people an opportunity to learn the things that they want to learn from experts, right? We want to give them really valuable information. And so that's why we started this online learning platform with SOS Navigator, is to give those people some different options, and learning that. And then again, it just continues to grow. Like when we hooked up with Chris and Brandon, and they're not consulting people necessarily in the marketing side of things. They're trying to get people to get out and grow their business. And the first thing that intrigued me the most about your sales course is, and Katie and Hayden, you can both speak to this, how many times do we talk to a client who we're doing their marketing for them, and they tell us that they want to get into commercial sales? Like, at some point, I think every restoration company wants to do more of that, but it's such a different marketplace than going after the residential customer, dropping off donuts at the insurance company, paying a plumber for leads. Like, it's so different and scary.
That's what I was going to say. It feels so risky to them.
Yeah.
This is what they say to us all the time is, I don't know how, like, I'm scared to do it. This feels risky, right? And especially when they'll say things like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe getting off so many TPAs and getting more into commercial. Man, that comment right there, we hear so much, and it is laced in fear.
Yeah, big time. It's like you said, Derek, it's a common thing that all of our clients at some point are going to say, I want to get more commercial work, or how do I get more commercial work? And, I was talking to Katie about this yesterday. Your digital marketing can help in that, right? Like, it can be a way to maybe provide more information for some of those commercial customers. You want your website to mention that you have commercial, maybe document and show some of that commercial work. We want your advertising to also show that if somebody does search for commercial restoration work, or, my basement in my business flooded, like, you obviously want to show up for that. But most of the time, at least again, from what I've seen with my clients, most of the time, commercial work is not going to come because somebody Googled it. Most of the time, commercial work is going to come from some kind of relationship that has been built. And like you just said, Katie, going out and doing that, or knowing how to do that effectively, is like scary, right? It's hard to know. And you don't want to waste your time. I feel like the biggest fear is not necessarily like just talking to someone. And I'm sure that is for some people, but I would assume a big fear for a lot of these people is like, they don't want to waste the money, right? Like, they're afraid to like pay a salesperson, a BDR, to go out there and like, knock on doors and talk to people and do those things that they're like, man, I just don't know if this is going to be worth my time or my money. Right. And it's a constant thing that is brought up to me, and I'm, Katie, Derek, to you guys as well.
Yeah.
Well, Chris and Brandon, you can speak to this, but it's like a total different language.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, understanding what to do and who to talk to and how to talk to them. Chris, you talked to me about, on that podcast we did in Austin last week, about the conversation you had with that director at the hotel, right? And how she came and gave you all of that bit of advice. Maybe you could share something like that, but it's a totally different language to sell to commercial than it is to sell in the other realms.
It is. It's kind of like going from, from sort of amateur sales tactics. And I mean that with all affection, because all of us that, came from the industry, we all started with the route sales, candy and smiles approach. I mean, maybe with the exception of some of the large commercial only companies like the Belfours and so forth. But in my experience, they're deploying a similar version of the candy and smiles. It just looks different, and it's obviously targeted at different contacts than insurance agents and so forth. But it's about going pro. And people that might be watching this that have a background in B2B sales, the principles and stuff that we teach essentially is B2B selling. how do most B2B sales reps sell? It's a consultative, advisory, pain solution selling model. It's not rocket science. It isn't, King Solomon, right, says in scripture that there's nothing new under the sun. And Brandon and I believe that. Like there's nothing, there's no fancy silver bullet out there that folks have yet to find, but it's about creating new disciplines in how we sell, who we talk to, and how we talk to them. That's really the game changer. And to your point, Derek, it is a different language. But what's interesting is as teams start to make the shift into the commercial master course methodology and language and so forth, is it all applies to the route sales, the referral partner development as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a shift in mindset. It's a shift in methodology, and that stuff has positive downstream effects on the rest of our marketing team, like the route reps that are doing the referral partner cultivation. All the principles in the commercial sales master course really actually do apply to insurance and our conversations with plumbers and everything else, which is the cool thing. Like, you're not just companies that decide to jump on to the commercial sales master course. They aren't just problem solving around, we want more commercial sales. What they're really signing on to is leveling up their entire company to be able to more effectively sell to commercial, but also sell in those referral partner relationships too.
One thing I'd probably add to that, and we've just started to see more and more of this recently. I can't remember if we talked about it last week or not, but the adoption of it by our operations teams as well. So there's kind of like two things that we know that a lot of organizations wrestle with. One is this kind of internal silos that we accidentally create by the way we communicate and some of the actions that we take. And so often there's this silo between sales and operations. So if we were to go into an organization and start pumping up what the team's doing on a commercial sales operational perspective, the challenge is have we upped the game with our operational staff to where we're still unified, we're speaking the same language, and we're delivering on the same promises our people are making. And so one of the unifying factors I think that Chris and I have just kind of leaned heavy on is when we do more of build a peer relationship with our client, it also allows us to interact and engage them in a much different way from a service delivery as well, because we truly are becoming a partner, not just a vendor or a service provider. It's very different. And so one of the things that's really powerful is the way that we do that well, whether it be sales or operations, as Chris would say, we got to be students of the target markets we're going after. And so one of the things that we do in the commercial sales course that sometimes I get a little self-conscious about, to be honest, is there is a boatload of content specifically designed to teach salespeople and operational staff who it is they're talking to, like the org structure, what's important to them. They don't care about your IICRC standards. They don't give two shits. Like, they don't care. They have all these other institutionally based, internal based decision-making factors, weighted factors, all of the things. And when we become a student of that, we can shift our service delivery to meet a need instead of trying to cram something down their throat that they literally don't care about. And so I think, where am I going with this? There's a lot of unifying power for both our teams, operational teams, and our salespeople to become that student of their target market. And I just think that I think it's a pretty powerful element in the commercial master course that we give that much energy to that. And I think it's helpful.
I agree. When I first started getting into your master course, like, hey, what's all in here? Would this be valuable to our clients? And I love that you said go pro, right? Because that's one of the first things I thought as I got in, and I'm like, no, this is pro level. Like, this is pro stuff. And that was one of the thoughts. I'm like, this isn't just about sales, right? Like, this can affect a whole organization, and the things that you learn in it really are next level. So I commend you guys on all the content you put together in that and how well you speak to restorers that are trying to step into it, because it just, it's not rocket science. It really isn't, right? But the way you present it in this master course, there's so many like aha moments where you're like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. And now that you know that, now that you're armed with that, man, you're always armed with it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Tell
think
us
the
more,
big,
Katie.
oh, go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
What'd you say?
I said, tell us more, Katie.
Yeah. I love it. Please.
Wow. Please tell us more.
I mean it. Like, it was exciting to me, really, because we're, like we've talked about, we're having these conversations all the time. And man, how do you arm businesses? How do we arm the clients we're all working with that type of information? And it was really exciting for me, because I remember I went back to our team, and huge shout out to Jessica Smith on our team, who is really the genius brains behind Navigator. She makes it work and is really pretty amazing. But she's the one that was like, hey, there's a place for more than just our content here, right? Like, this would be really cool on here. And she helped us kind of form the vision of how we can take the Floodlight Master course and put it on SOS Navigator. And really with the goal of, like, I want to get it into as many offices as we can, because I think it's just packed with gold.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do too, but we're biased.
I want to hang in this pocket a little bit, because I think, we talk about the commercial sales master course. What's in it? I'll cover that here in a second. I want to dive into just some of the kind of categories of training and content they're going to get. But this operational piece, this was a thing that, sometimes you create a product or a service and you think you're creating it for a very specific group, a customer group, or a department in a restoration business. Like in this case, sales. Like, this is for salespeople. Like, that's what we created it for. This is an onboarding tool to create a unified process. When we bring in a sales rep, the very first thing they do is go through the master course and establishes a common language across the team, a common methodology and process, activity cadence that the whole team can unify around and leadership can hold them accountable to, right? So it was like that's the product that we thought we created. And then over the subsequent months, we started to have owners that would go through the master course. And the feedback we got is, wow, I didn't previously know what we were actually trying to do. We want the commercial jobs, but they didn't understand sales. They didn't understand the kinds of conversations that their people should be having in the field and stuff. So it's very difficult for them to manage their salespeople or a sales team. I think that's a very common struggle within our industry, but really any of the home services and facility services trades, is a lot of times the operational owner or leader came up through the operational tradecraft side of the business, and they knew how to sell themselves, like in those early days before they had a sales team. But then getting a sales team and managing and leading a sales team is a different tradecraft. And so we had a lot of these owners and general managers going through it, I think more out of curiosity or recognizing they needed to understand more about their sales department. And they're coming back to us and saying, gosh, this is really good. And in some cases, they were then having their department leaders go through the master course. And so I think what we've discovered, and I think the reason that this is fueling this, is with residential is just a different animal, in that we have a customer that we're serving that we are likely never going to serve again.
Yep.
Right.
Whereas with our commercial clients, we're building an ongoing evergreen relationship, or that's what we're trying to do, right? In restoration, is we want to build a relationship with that chief engineer, that portfolio manager, that director of facilities, VP of operations. For the next 10 years, we want them to send us business. And in order to do that, we have to optimize our service delivery to meet their need, to solve problems they've had in the past with another XYZ restoration, right? To meet their preferences that they have based on how their business functions. And that requires this equal measure of performance from both the salesperson, the story they're telling, the information they're gathering, and the actual service delivery that chief engineer or director of facilities experiences. And just in residential, there's a bigger margin for error in that service delivery. Because kind of my worst case scenario, and I don't mean to downplay this, obviously, because we all want to create awesome customer experience for everybody we work with. But on residential, it's like if you flub a job, a single job, well, you're probably never going to work for that homeowner again anyways. I mean, I'm just being pragmatic, right?
Yep.
Whereas optimizing that service delivery on the commercial side can mean the difference between, $3 million in work over the next year, 2, 3 years with that one particular commercial client, or having that $20,000 water job be your last job you ever do for them. And I think that's something that as restoration companies, we don't often give enough thought and planning to on the front end. Let me give you a very quick example. The most common pain point in restoration with commercial decision makers is communication. Big surprise, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mind blown. It's communication. And it is also with residential, but again, we're building a lifelong relationship with this commercial thing. And so the quality of our communication, not just on one project, but all projects we do for them is paramount. And the most common type of communication pain is frequency of communication. And why is that? Well, you think about a property manager. A property manager has a boss. They have two bosses, actually. They have the portfolio manager or whoever their boss is at the property management company. But then the other boss they have is their owner client, who they're managing that property for. And what happens when they have a damage event at one of their properties? Does that property, that owner client, do they care? Of course they care. And some clients are more high maintenance than others. Can I hear an amen?
Yeah, sure.
Right? And so some of those owner clients, they want to know what the hell's going on with my units, because they may or may not have loss of rents coverage on their policy. They may be self-insured on some of their properties, and they're just losing money. They're just bleeding every day that those units are out of commission, right? So you have some portion of a property manager's owner clients that are breathing down their neck every day. How long is this going to take? When are we going to get the tenants back in? How much is this costing me? All that kind of stuff. And their biggest complaint about restoration companies is, we never know what the hell's going on. We have to chase the project manager to get an update. And part of the problem with that is that many companies who historically have done residential is they may have a very effective cadence of having a weekly project check-in with their homeowners. It's very, very common in our industry. Now, some companies don't even do that, but many companies have a disciplined cadence of that project manager meeting either via FaceTime or in person at the project site weekly. And that's enough. But when you think about the paradigm with a property manager, and there's a similar one with senior living, hotels, and a lot of these other commercial segments we operate in, they need way more frequent communication updates because their owner client is demanding it, right? And so here's where this collaboration between sales and service begins, is that your salespeople are the ones that are going to be sussing out what are those requirements, what are those past pain points.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be the ones hearing the "we never know what the hell's going on" comments from that director of facilities or that community manager at a big apartment complex. And if they feed that back routinely to the team can start to refine their process to provide better service delivery for the various commercial type clients they have. One example of that being, Brandon and I learned as we were making the shift into more commercial, that we really had to do daily updates. We had to. Because if we didn't, there was always the risk that one of our cherished property managers that was sending us work was going to get that hair on fire email from their high maintenance owner client, like, what the hell's going on? And they're going to have egg on their face for not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And the only solution to that was for us to deploy a daily update. And so we have a simple Google template that we taught our teams. We teach our clients now. It's the 24-hour job update. It's not sexy. It doesn't require a monthly service fee. It's not another software app. It's a stinking Google template in their Gmail. It essentially answers 3 questions for simplicity. What happened today? What's happening next? And are there any questions or concerns we have, that information we need or that you need, essentially, right? Yeah. Because what we found over time is that owner client that's breathing down that property manager's neck, it's not that they're mad if nothing's happening on their project. They just want to know what's going on. A lot of times we have days where no work is happening because we're waiting on asbestos samples to come back, right? Or we're waiting for the flooring to come in, or some fixtures that are back ordered that have to go in before the next thing, right? In the construction timeline. If we communicate nothing, we have a very unpleasant question mark in that owner client's head.
Yep.
And they pass that unpleasantness on to their property manager. What the hell's going on? When are my, they're passing that stress on to our referral partner. And the one way we can alleviate we can alleviate that for them is to provide them these 24-hour job updates. Because even if the update is, we didn't do anything today because we're waiting on X, we expect that work will resume on X day. That alone helps wipe away the question marks and give them the information they need. And so that just is one really simple illustration of how sales and service have to work together on commercial, because that's one example of a pain point that commercial companies have. But then there's a lot of nuanced pain points around billing. We had a customer that had a new commercial client. Sales rep did a discovery call with the director of facilities, and the restoration company they were working with expected upfront payment of 50% before the work started, before MIT work started. Like, that's weird. And so when they told them that they have net 30 payment terms, on their mitigation invoices, the client's like, oh my God, that'd be so much easier. Now, some people listen to this are like, what the heck? What kind of restoration company requires upfront deposits on MIT response work? And it was very weird, And so there are those rando pain points, and there's a lot of other common pain points that come up. And if our sales team does an effective job of documenting those things and communicating them to the service team, then the service team can accommodate their process with those things to match up with what that commercial client's needs are. That's how we win. So it isn't just a matter of us training our sales reps how to be more effective at the selling and persuading. It's also about us optimizing our service delivery and the communication flow that's happening between our sales and our production and field teams.
I love
awesome.
That's
Derek, I don't know if I was more captivated by his beard or what he was saying, but what do you,
so
for you, what, no, I everything you said there was awesome, Chris.
That's where your amen should have come right there. That's where we all
give me an amen. No, it's so interesting, Chris. Everything that you said there is so applicable even to the clients that we work with, right? Like the communication ends up being such a crucial piece of the puzzle that is often forgotten. It's like, oh, our results are great. We're providing great results for these clients. Why are they still frustrated with us? And you can always point to this communication piece. And it seems like some simple things like daily updates or, walking through the billing process, right? Like it seems like fairly simple things, but some stuff that's missed by a lot of companies out there.
So true. Well, let me do this. Let's get tactical and let's talk about what's in the master course. What do people get with it? So it's roughly 11 hours of material. What's great about that is this isn't just a little 2-hour recorded webinar that talks about sales. And like this is not a 30,000 foot pass. This is very in depth, but it's also short enough that you can like we talked about at the very beginning, it can be a really effective onboarding tool for seasoned or new sales reps, experienced or inexperienced sales reps, to very quickly get up to speed with not just the fundamentals, not just the basics, but also a lot of exposure to higher level thinking and more strategic thinking and tactics and stuff like that. So it really presents the gamut. People can kind of work their way into the material. So a beginner is going to get all the basics and the fundamentals, but as they become more proficient and experienced, the other high level stuff will naturally start to fall into their process as well as they get their sea legs, and all that kind of stuff. So it's an onboarding tool, but what do they get? What's inside that? The very first section they're going to get into is the customer segment deep dives. And we've kind of referenced this a few times, but Brandon and I had a lot of fun with this because really it was a combination of two things. One, certainly since we've been consulting, we have a lot more data points, at any given time, like right now, I think we have 22, 23 clients across the entire country that we're working with one-on-one, and everything from $3 million companies to 50, 60, $70 million companies. And so there's a broad base of experience we're referencing when it comes to working in senior living, hotels, and property management. And so Brandon and I basically download our experience and knowledge from those industries. Everything from who are the key decision maker contacts that actually green light a new vendor, and who are the influencers, the people that may not make the decision, but they can kill the deal or they can advocate for us, right? People like chief engineers, maintenance technicians and maintenance managers, right? Regional maintenance managers who sometimes are a chief decision maker, and other times they're more of an influencer that green lights a vendor, that say a VP of operations say, hey, John, what do you think of these guys? Have you heard of these guys? Oh yeah, they're good. Like that kind of stuff. So we go into depth about all the different personalities involved in these industries, as well as we've done, Brandon and I've done work in all these sectors, a lot of it. And so of our clients, how does the decision-making process, like how do these companies make decisions at the time of loss? And how does that affect our ability to secure both sides of the job, not just the emergency response, but also securing the recon? We get into the weeds with how this all works within these different industries. So that customer segment deep dive. Now, the second part is we actually have live interviews. Well, not live interviews, but we have recorded video interviews with customer segment leaders. And over time, we're going to be adding to these as we have opportunities. But one of them is with one of our favorite clients who's the GM of an Embassy Suites hotel. And we spend a whole hour with Scott Youngblood, him kind of pulling back the curtain and just talking as a hotel GM. He's never been in the restoration industry. He's just talking about his business. And we get in and we ask all kinds of curious discovery questions with him. How does this work? You know, and when you have some kind of damage on your property, how do you think about that? And how do you guys deal with that on top of all the other normal stuff that's going on in a hotel? How does that affect the day-to-day operations? And hearing in his voice and his industry language what that's like for a hotel GM. What are some of the pain points and frustrations that flow out of an active damage event on property? We also did this with the owner of a property management company, a former client of ours. And it's fascinating. It was fun for us even to have that conversation with them. But for the onlookers that are taking in the master course, it's a special opportunity to have this shop talk conversation with the type of people that we're actively trying to sell to. It's really interesting. Like, so we're excited to get some more of those one-on-one interviews, but that customer segment deep dive is huge. We also in the master course talk about, okay, so now we know who we're selling to. How do we go about selling? And so we have a whole section on creating a bulletproof sales pipeline. How do we begin? How do we build? How do we grow a commercial sales portfolio? And that starts with us explaining this mind shift. And this is a big theme in the master course. And frankly, it's a big theme in our consulting business. Our approach, our framework is, we tend to associate sales with charisma and cleverness, having the right answers to objections. If the customer says this, we'll just tell them that. You know, or ask them this really poignant question to kind of get them back on their heels and back in, you know, in the ready to buy mode. There's just like this, it's this manipulation, if we're honest, you know, it's like learning how to maneuver around the conversation and the client. And I've always been turned off by that personally. And most of the operational decision makers that I've worked with, they hate all that song and dance and all that maneuvering and everything else. It feels weird. Nobody likes it. No one likes it.
Right.
First of all, operational leaders don't like salespeople. They don't like talking to salespeople. And it's not personal. It's that they don't see the value unless they have a felt need. And that's not a big part of their job, selecting vendors. And so the question is, how do we treat them and interact with them in such a way that we don't put them on their heels? We don't annoy them. And what we found is it just comes back to the truth. It just comes back to us skillfully asking good, curious questions, using peer-based language, being honest, being curious about their experience in their role, their background, being curious about previous damage events that happened, not pitching, but asking curious questions. Hey, what's your experience been with our industry? You've been you've been a property manager for a minute, so I know you've had some experiences. Give me the high low, right? So those kind of peer-based shop talk kind of questions that really drive relationships with commercial decision makers. And so we break that down. With this mindset shift. It's not about handing out your trifolds. It's not about telling them how big your fleet is. It's not about diving right into selling an ERP on this cool app. It's all about, what does our customer need? And how do we talk to them? And then we also talk about, we lay out the process, like how many contacts, how many cold calls should somebody be doing? What does the reporting look like during sales meetings? We have a whole section on 2 sales reps of, how do you manage up, right? How do you be an effective sales leader relative to how you're engaging and updating and reporting and collaborating with your upline leader, your sales manager or the GM or the owner? Like, what does that look like? That's something that we don't talk about enough in our business. And we have a section 2, which talks to the senior leaders on, how do you manage effectively and mentor your salespeople? What kind of questions should you be asking them in your sales meeting each week to drive accountability and the right kind of behavior and the quality of interactions we're looking for? So there's both and. So we're both teaching owners how to manage their salespeople in this new kind of approach, and we're teaching salespeople how to effectively be a great team member, right? And then the last piece that we spend a lot of time on is all the tools and methodologies. Like, what is an ERP, emergency response plan? What's the real purpose of it? What's the best way to go about that stuff? How can you use LinkedIn as a powerful, did I say powerful tool for commercial selling? And by the way, frankly, for recruiting, that's a whole nother conversation. But LinkedIn, and so we do a deep dive on how to leverage those tools effectively, and on and on and on. So those sections all conspire to get somebody really, truly set up to be able to go chase commercial business effectively. And anyway, I'm off my soapbox. We're proud of it. We're proud of it because it was something that not only did Brandon and I spend a lot of time on, but it really is the product of all of our real experience. You know what I mean? It isn't the summary of a bunch of sales books we read. It's like, no, this is our lived experience of shifting a restoration company from predominantly residential to building out a really thriving, commercial business.
No, you should be proud of it, Chris. Frankly, it sounds amazing, and we know it's amazing. Otherwise, Katie and Derek wouldn't have wanted to put it in Navigator, obviously, because it's going to provide a ton of really, really awesome, realistic value. You started at the beginning by saying this isn't a webinar that we recorded via Zoom, and we're like, okay, here you go. Now pay us money for it. This is like very obviously like tools and strategies and how to not only build your sales team, but get your service team prepared and operations aligned with everything that's going on. There's so much good there. I just don't see how, if you want to build your commercial sales team, you want to get more commercial sales, I don't see how you do it without something like this. This is everything you're going to need. And I think the key piece, at least to me, the thing that stood out the most was those interviews that you're doing with industry leaders. Like that's an inside look to what these people actually care about, so that your sales team knows, hey, these are things that they care about. These are questions that were asked to them. You're going to know how they're going to feel about these certain things. And it's an awesome, it's a cheat code for your business. It's a way to elevate and grow in all those different aspects. And I'm really excited for my clients to see it. Cause again, I have clients mention this almost daily. Hey, what are some ways we can get more commercial, sales? What do we got to do? And this is going to be a great tool for them going forward. Katie, where obviously Chris and Brandon have talked about all these kind of awesome pieces to this and who they are and the background and everything. How can people find this course? Where do they need to go? I know you wanted to kind of offer them a deal right now to our listeners. Where can they go to find this?
You bet. You bet. So we'll put this in our show notes. We're also going to sell it on, or have it on our social platforms. So Spot On Solutions Facebook page will have it. Floodlight Consulting Facebook page will have it, and then it'll be in the show notes. But you can get there by going to SOS Navigator. You'll see that the Floodlight Master Course is right on there. It is $9.97. I'm telling you, it is going to pay for itself so fast. It's ridiculous. Matter of fact, I tried really hard to talk him into selling it for more. I was like, you guys, you know how much value is in this? Like, this is worth more than that, honestly. But we are really passionate about sharing this, with the industry. I think it's going to be a game changer. And if you want to go pro, with your commercial sales, man, this is where you need to be. So, and then we're going to throw in there a discount code. So use the code SUCCESS100. Since you heard it on the Success Elevated podcast here, but use that code SUCCESS100, and it's going to get you $100 off. So you're talking $8.90. I guess Chris, Brandon, I didn't tell you that. We're going to give him a discount code. You cool with that?
I love it. I love it.
I'm excited. I'm excited to have more people using this. I'm excited to hear stories of commercial sales. I'm excited for what that's going to do for businesses, because once this is implemented, it really is a game changer. So we'll make sure that link is out all over both of our socials so that it's easy for you guys to grab and go to. And then code SUCCESS100 is going to get you $100 off.
I love it. Well, listen, we've talked about so many awesome things today. I think we're approaching my favorite part of the podcast. We have 2 new people on. Katie and Derek have done this multiple times, but we're approaching my favorite part, which is where we get to grill them with a few more questions here at the end. But we're going to do some rapid fire to kind of learn a little bit about some of your favorite things and how you guys kind of operate in your minds when it comes to running Floodlight Consulting Group. But I want to close with just a couple of quick questions for both of you. Brandon, I'll start with you. Favorite book or podcast that you're reading or listening to, or that you've read or listened to recently?
That's good. Okay. So Knowledge Project is probably, and maybe even for Chris, he introduced it to me, but that's my go-to podcast. I try not to miss that. As far as book, I got a weird one. So right now I'm reading a book, or I should be more transparent. I'm using Audible to go through a book.
Someone is reading a book to me. Yeah.
So, and they're doing a really damn good job. But I'm going through a book called The Road Back to You. And for anybody listening, this is based on the Enneagram kind of, I guess, platform, this idea of kind of understanding yourself better through this Enneagram type identification process. Anyways, it's just a book that explains the different types and how they interact with one another and the way that they're influenced ultimately to be that kind of person. And it's been really fun to get a more in-depth look at myself. I know that sounds weird, but I mean, in a really good way in terms of awareness. Like, how am I interacting with those around me and what's causing that? Right. So it's been, it's been interesting. That's what I'm doing right now.
Listen, Brandon, this is a safe podcast for that kind of talk, because we are a big believer in that kind of stuff. Katie, from day one with all of our employees here, we are big believers in personality styles and how those help you interact with people around you, and learning more, like turning inward and figuring out, okay, this is who I am. This is how I need to communicate with others. And this is how other people want to be communicated with. I love that stuff. So that's awesome. Great recommendation.
It's super critical. I feel like it's kind of become a bit of a superpower the more that I spend time understanding and learning that. It's interesting too, because not only does it help you understand yourself better, but even your personality and other people often can really rub you wrong, and you have a tough time putting your finger on it. Well, when you learn more of like what's fueling that and all the things that fuel you, all of a sudden you can look at that person across the table with a lot more grace, because you're like, oh, I know how you're being misinterpreted right now because I'm misinterpreted the same way all the time, right? Or all whatever. So anyways, I love it.
Brandon, we need to hang out more and talk stuff. I'm reading one right now that goes right with it that you would dig.
Katie, did you hear he used your word? He called it a superpower. Did you? That's awesome. Katie says that all the time. Understanding personality styles, it's a superpower. It can help you change your, like, oh yeah, that's
I'm telling you, we speak the same language.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Chris, favorite book or podcast? What are you reading right now, or what are you listening to? What do you like?
Well, Brandon stole my thunder a little bit. I love the Knowledge Project. Highly recommend it to anybody. I'm actually a premium subscriber, so I get the episodes a week for everybody else, and I get transcripts.
Oh, you're kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Big deal.
it makes me feel special. So, no, but I love the material. I think one of the things I love about Knowledge Project is it's people from all different industries and CEOs, founders, all that kind of stuff. It's just very interesting, authors and researchers. But I actually, okay, so I have two things. One, I really like the Tim Ferriss podcast. If anybody has listened to Tim Ferriss, he also has a really eclectic mix of entrepreneurs and business owners and researchers and stuff like that as well. So that's another favorite that's kind of in my frequent listen list here. I use Overcast as my podcast player. And so I was just like looking at my most listened to podcast before that. I'm also in a book. So I'm on a kick. Brandon and I are both on a kick, but I'm really digging into self-awareness and like head games, like the stories in our head, mindset, you know, a lot of that stuff, because I just find that the older I get, the more that touches everything. You know what I mean? It's like that affects how I do everything. You know, it's like that. I don't know if it's a Buddhist principle or something else. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I think that all of that stuff originates in our head. Like, what's the story in my head that's affecting how I react, respond to different situations and people, and getting clearer on that, right? Because so often our egos get activated and we're just reacting, right, to different things that come our way. So one of the books I really love right now, it is a little bit of a woo-woo quality to it, but Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, talks all about the ego and the repetitive thoughts, right, that we deal with in our head. It's really, really good. It's probably the third time I've read it in the last 10 years, and it's super rad. So anyways, those are my two.
Man, you guys have got to go check out. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. So Leadership and Self-Deception.
Best book ever.
Have you read that?
Oh yeah.
Did a book club with Eric and Larry on it.
Dude, I went to an event a couple weeks ago, and the founder of the Arbinger Institute was the speaker at it. And the Arbinger Institute is who like wrote that. I'd never been exposed to it before. Like seriously life-changing. So, and it goes right along with what you're saying. Super cool. All right, go check out yours. Those sound great.
Heck yeah. Okay, next question. How do you relax at the end of a long day? This one is, I find, is probably the most challenging with the people we talk to on the podcast, because it's as a business owner, both of you, like it's hard to do for sure. I know Katie and Derek, it was hard to provide answers for that question too, because it's your business becomes a part of your life and who you are. But how do you wear a lot of hats? What do you do to relax at the end of a long day? Brandon, you're smiling there. How do you do it?
Well, I'm smiling because I think I've been stuck in about 6 or 7 years of perpetually trying to figure that out.
Okay, gotcha.
I think maybe the things that I can point to that have been consistent is I have a wife that is safe for me. So like 8, right? Like I've got this exterior that I'm putting on, and this thing that I'm doing on a consistent basis, driving decisions, trying to lead people, trying to be hopeful for people, right? All the things. And when I get home, it's really powerful for me just to let all of that, like, set it at the door and just come in and be fully me. So I think if I didn't have that, I would probably run at a much higher rate than I do, and I think I would burn out. So I think that's the one thing I can bank on, is just I feel safe around my wife to be me. So, and then I think the other thing is for me personally, I'm an introvert, so I have to have separation from social engagement. And so we live on property kind of in the middle of nowhere, and that's totally cool for me. Like, I go home, I can sit on my porch, and I'm probably going to see one person drive by the entire evening, and I'm really dang good with that. So I would say amazing. That's probably what I lean into right now.
That's perfect. That's a great answer. I for someone that says they've been trying to figure that out, I think you've got it figured out, man. That sounds pretty dang awesome.
It just
Chris, what
doesn't
do you
sound
think?
very sexy. So I'm still trying to find that, like, the cool thing that I'm supposed to be doing to relax, but that's what I'm currently doing.
Yeah, I go paragliding or something. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to just go make something up, right?
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's it sounds cliche and egoic, but working out, physical training, going to for me, it's a CrossFit gym, CrossFit style gym. I'm not one of those crazy competitor kind of guys, but it's one of those things that if I show up and do it, it's probably the biggest source of kind of decompression for me. So right now, my schedule, I was doing it in the mornings, and I just found, and that was fine. It was great. It's like working out feels good when you're done. But I recently moved it a couple months ago to in the late afternoon. And like 4:30, 5 o'clock, I go into the gym, and it is a really reliable, awesome way for me to just kind of shed some of the anxieties of the day and and just all the stuff that happened or didn't happen before I go home and regain contact with the family. And so and then the other thing, it's so simple. It's kind of like Brandon's. 2 years ago, my wife and I tore out the window in our master bedroom and put in a sliding glass door and built a deck off of our master bedroom, a covered deck, important in Oregon. And literally all year, but like my favorite thing to do in the evening to relax is, and sometimes we'll even eat dinner out on that back deck if it's just my wife and I just love to sit. We have a couch on that back deck, and I just sit and watch my dog play in the backyard, or I
Yeah.
watch the flowers move in the breeze. And sometimes we'll listen to music, but I love just the tranquility of sitting on that back deck and relaxing and by myself or with my wife, listening to music or having it quiet and listening to the frogs. There's a canal on the backside of our house, and so there's frogs and squirrels running across our back fence, all that kind of stuff, right? So I love that. I'm a bit of a hippie by nature in that fashion. So
Hey, well, that's perfect. I don't think I would recommend anything different. I think that's very similarly. We recently finished up some projects at our house, and yeah, now we have a back patio that we can go and hang out. And in the evenings, especially in the summers, are my favorite time. We just go out and sit and hang out in the backyard, and yeah, it's awesome, man. Last question for both of you. And you can take this as far back as you want. Feel free to, if you want to go back to the beginning of Floodlight or before, whatever you'd like to do. But if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would that one thing be? Obviously you're in Oregon, so maybe it's invest in Nike or something like that. I don't know if that's what it is, but what would that one thing be? If you could go back to younger Brandon, younger Chris, what would it be?
Yeah, Chris, you start that one. I need a hot minute.
Yeah. Well, I've said this before, and it's, I think young people, I occasionally, I go speak at college classes every now and then. I have a couple friends who are professors, and they'll bring me in to talk about entrepreneurship or sales, that kind of thing. And inevitably people will ask me, especially as I get older, they love asking this question because I'm like the old gray hair in the room right now. It's so weird. But they'll say, any advice, for a current college student about how to prepare themselves for their career and all that stuff? Or what do you recommend? One of these I speak at is a community college, and they're getting ready to go on to the university and transfer. What major do you suggest? And I was just a normal business track back when I was in school, just business management. And I think knowing everything I know now, and just how universal business education is, like, there's so many resources for learning about the fundamentals of business, every area of it. I think I would go back and be a journalism major because of the way the world works now. What does journalism do? It teaches you how to be a very effective communicator. It teaches you how to be succinct in communicating what you're trying to say or write. It makes you a great writer, both of which are incredibly valuable in sales, in business ownership, in teaching people, in all the things, right? In business and owning businesses. But the other thing is that journalists learn how to be curious and to, double down on their curiosity. They learn how to ask great questions that elicit, great answers. And so I just think, that's one of the things I would do differently, you know, is I would have focused in, had I known what I know now, I might have gone to school for journalism, or I might not have gone to school at all, to be honest. But that would have been the skill base that I want to learn. And I think journalism might be one of those degrees where it gives you this rigorous experience of learning how to write and talk and questions to ask and work experience. So maybe that's one of those college degrees that still makes sense. You know what I mean? I think that'd be my one of the many things, right, that I in hindsight might do a little bit differently.
That speaks right to Katie, because Katie's background is in journalism. So that's right up her alley.
There's no place better to hang out than a newsroom. Like, there's nothing like it. It's the coolest thing ever. So
love it.
very fun.
Brandon, close us out. What's your one thing you would tell younger Brandon?
Pursue skills over money. I should have done, I would have done more of that. Like, I think in general, had I been more focused on maximizing each experience I had for skills versus chasing the next paycheck or the title that paid you more, I think it would have ramped up the speed of which I started some of the adventure that I've been on. I see it in my kids. I see it in a lot of youth. It's like, don't get strapped to the toys where you've got to bleed money or take a paycheck over taking the experience or the opportunity you want to. So skills over money, man. That's where I'm at.
Great answers, you guys. Those are awesome answers.
Phenomenal. I don't know why Derek didn't want to have you guys on the podcast, but I'm glad we did. This was
I tried to talk him out of it over and over and over again, but
no, this was awesome. This is fantastic. I know I'd speak for both Derek and Katie. Brandon, Chris, thank you for coming on today. This was awesome. It was awesome to talk about this new partnership. And I hope we're going to have you guys on in the future to talk about maybe some future courses we can offer on Navigator, or just future, big plans we're going to hopefully work on together. And, again, just thank you guys for coming on, talking all things sales and growing your business, and kind of this shared vision that we have of elevating people. We hope to have you on in the future, but we really appreciate it.
Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate having us.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.